Welcome to Searching the Scriptures. Our Bible teacher will be Gunther von Harringa Sr. In this series of studies, we will be focusing on the book of Judges. Without further ado, let's look into God's Word, the Bible.
Good evening and welcome to Searching the Scriptures. This is going to be lesson number 37, and we're continuing our examination in chapter 1 of the book of Judges. And we're going to continue with verse 19 to 20. And we're going to see once again this continued cycle of rebellion and judgment, deliverance, and rest. We read in Judges 1, 19 to 20, "And Jehovah was with Judah, and he drove out the inhabitants of the mountain, but could not drive out the inhabitants of the valley, because they had chariots of iron. And they gave Hebron unto Caleb, as Moses said, and he expelled thence the three sons of Anak." We're curious as to the spiritual significance of Judah driving out the inhabitants of the mountains, yet not being able to drive out the inhabitants of the valley because they had chariots of iron. And in the historical context, we learned that the mountain was actually part of the inheritance of Judah, as was promised to Caleb, who was of the tribe of Judah, in Joshua 14, 12 to 14. Joshua 14, 12 to 14. "Now therefore, give me this mountain, whereof Jehovah spake in that day, for thou heardest in that day how the Anakim were there, and that the cities were great and fenced. If so be that Jehovah will be with me, that I shall be able to drive them out, as Jehovah said. And Joshua blessed him, and gave unto Caleb the son of Jephunneh Hebron for an inheritance. Hebron therefore became the inheritance of Caleb, the son of Jephunneh the Kenizzite, unto this day, because that he wholly followed Jehovah God of Israel." Now we also, if we go to Joshua 11:21, we learn that prior to this, Joshua had already expelled the Anakims from the mountains. This is Joshua 11:21. And we have to keep in mind that Joshua is a great type of Christ himself. And at that time came Joshua and cut off the Anakim from the mountains, from Hebron, from Debir, from Anab, and from all the mountains of Judah, and from all the mountains of Israel. Joshua destroyed them utterly with their cities. And it's interesting because of the fact that Hebron has to do with, it's a word that has to do with the association or assembly, and Debir has to do with the oracle or the sanctuary, in other words, the Holy of Holies. And Anab has to do with fruit. And because of that, we see that spiritually, again, we see a tie-in with the churches and denominations, that God would utterly destroy them. And it says Joshua destroyed them utterly with their cities. Now let's go on then to learn a little more about the Anakims. They're actually described in Numbers 13, 27 to 33. Numbers 13, 27 to 33. Okay. I'm in the wrong chapter. Numbers 13, 27 to 33. And they told him, this is the Israelites reporting back to Moses, and said, We came unto the land whither thou sentest us, and surely it floweth with milk and honey, and this is the fruit of it. Nevertheless, the people be strong that dwell in the land, and the cities are walled and very great, and moreover we saw the children of Anak there. The Amalekites dwell in the land of the south, and the Hittites, and the Jebusites, and the Amorites dwell in the mountains, and the Canaanites dwell by the sea and by the coast of Jordan. And Caleb stilled the people before Moses and said, Let us go up at once and possess it, for we are well able to overcome it. But the men that went up with him said, We be not able to go up against the people, for they are stronger than we. And they brought up an evil report of the land which they had searched unto the children of Israel, saying, The land through which we have gone to search it is a land that eateth up the inhabitants thereof, and all the people that we saw in it are men of a great stature. And there we saw the giants, the sons of Anak, which come of the giants, and we were in our own sight as grasshoppers, and so we were in their sight. Now, in thinking about the giants, I'm reminded of the battle between David and Goliath, because here we have another giant, and of course he's a type or representation of Satan, and David as a type of the Lord Jesus Christ. And we read the following declaration by David under divine inspiration in 1 Samuel 17, 45 to 47. First Samuel 17, 45 to 47. Then said David to the Philistine, Thou comest to me with a sword, and with a spear, and with a shield. But I come to thee in the name of Jehovah of hosts, the God of the armies of Israel, whom thou hast defied. This day will Jehovah deliver thee into mine hand, and I will smite thee, and take thine head from thee. And I will give the carcasses of the host of the Philistines this day unto the fowls of the air, and to the wild beasts of the earth, that all the earth may know that there is a God in Israel. And all this assembly shall know that Jehovah saveth not with sword and spear. For the battle is Jehovah's, and he will give you into our hands. So we see the difference between David's attitude and of course we could include Caleb and Joshua as well, as opposed to the attitude or the lack of faith that the other 10 tribes exhibited. And because of that, God had consigned them to the desert for 40 years because of their lack of faith. In fact, they all died in that desert. God promised that they would die. The only ones that would actually make it to the promised land were those that were 20 years of age and younger. Now, coming back for a moment to this idea of the chariots of iron, we find a similar citation, a similar situation in Joshua 17:16 through 18, having to do with the children of Joseph. Okay, Joshua 17:16 through 18. And the children of Joseph, this would be the tribes of Ephraim and Manasseh, said, "The hill is not enough for us, and all the Canaanites that dwell in the land of the valley have chariots of iron, both they who are of Bethshean and her towns, and they who are of the valley of Jezreel." And Joshua spake unto the house of Joseph, even to Ephraim and to Manasseh, saying, Thou art a great people, and hast great power. Thou shalt not have one lot only, but the mountain shall be thine, for it is a wood, and thou shalt cut it down, and the outgoings of it shall be thine. For thou shalt drive out the Canaanites, though they have iron chariots, and though they be strong. Okay, let's see. If we go to Judges 4:1-3, we find the Israelites facing a similar dilemma. This time it has to do with Sisera, who is the captain of the armies of the king of Jabin. He's king of, actually Jabin is his name, he's king of Canaan. And Sisera is his captain. And again, we see here that he had 900 chariots of iron. Judges 4:1-3. And the children of Israel again did evil in the sight of Jehovah when Ehud was dead. And Jehovah sold them into the hand of Jabin, king of Canaan, that reigned in Hazor, the captain of whose host was Sisera, which dwelt in Harosheth of the Gentiles. And the children of Israel cried unto Jehovah, for he had 900 chariots of iron, and 20 years he mightily oppressed the children of God. Here we see that second phase of judgment. There's rebellion, and now God brings in judgment, particularly from another one of these heathen nations. Also, we see that this term iron actually is Strong's number 1270, and it's used in connection with with Egypt. If we go to Deuteronomy 4:20, we see that in view there. Deuteronomy 4:20. But Jehovah hath taken you and brought you forth out of the iron furnace, even out of Egypt, to be unto him a people of inheritance, as ye are this day. And this iron furnace, again, has to do with the fact that they are in bondage, in slavery to sin and to Satan in Egypt, and they were there for 400 years. The first 30 years we don't count because of the fact that Joseph was in charge, and things went very well during that time. But the number 400, 4 times 100, points to the universal completeness of this spiritual bondage that, in fact, all mankind is under since the Garden of Eden. And additionally, if we do 40 times 10, It has to do with the completeness of testing. This was a test for the children of Israel, and they were forced to endure it until they were delivered, by God out of the land of Egypt, and then they had to face another test that had to do with, because of their unbelief in not believing God that they could overcome the Anakims or any other giants. Then God consigned them to 40 years in the wilderness, a day for a year. And they all died in that wilderness, except for the ones, as I mentioned earlier, Joshua and Caleb, and also those that were 20 years of age and younger. But we have to always keep in mind that here in the book of Judges, the opposition that they are facing, from Satan, that God has orchestrated, has to do with their rebellion, their direct disobedience to God's commandments, as we see, for example, in Deuteronomy 9, 1-3. God spells it out very clearly what they were supposed to do once they got into the land of Canaan. Hear, O Israel, thou art to pass over Jordan this day, to go and to possess nations greater and mightier than thyself, cities great and fenced up to heaven, a people great and tall, the children of the Anakim, whom thou knowest, and of whom thou hast heard say, who can stand before the children of Anak? Understand therefore this day that Jehovah thy God is he which goeth over before thee as a consuming fire. He shall destroy them, and he shall bring them down before thy face. So shalt thou drive them out and destroy them quickly, as Jehovah hath said unto thee. And so very clearly, God tells them exactly what it is they needed to do. We also see this with regard to Joshua himself, who at the end of his life, at the end of his ministry, he reminds the Israelites of this fact in Joshua 23, 3-9 and 11-13. Joshua 23, 3-9 and 11-13. And ye have seen all that Jehovah your God hath done unto you, done unto all these nations because of you. For Jehovah your God is he that hath fought for you. Behold, I have divided unto you by lot these nations that remain, to be an inheritance for your tribes from Jordan, with all the nations that I have cut off, even unto the great sea westward. And Jehovah your God, he shall expel them from before you, and drive them out of your sight. And ye shall possess their land, as Jehovah your God hath promised unto you. Be ye therefore very courageous, to keep and to do all that is written in the book of the law of Moses, that ye turn not aside therefrom to the right hand or to the left, that ye come not among these nations, these that remain among you, neither make mention of the names of their gods, nor cause to swear by them, neither serve them, nor bow yourselves unto them, but cleave unto Jehovah your God, as ye have done unto this day. For Jehovah hath driven out from before you great nations and strong, but as for you, no man hath been able to stand before you unto this day. Then we read on in verses 11-13, Take good heed, therefore, unto yourselves, that ye love, read, obey, the Jehovah your God. Else, if you do in any wise go back and cleave unto the remnant of these nations, even these that remain among you, and shall make marriages with them, and go in unto them, and they to you, know for a certainty that Jehovah your God will no more drive out any of these nations from before you, but there shall be snares and traps unto you, and scourges in your sides, and thorns in your eyes, until ye perish from off this good land which Jehovah your God hath given you. Okay, so we see again this continual emphasis, this warning that God is giving to the Israelites, and this continues actually all the way even into the book of Judges, Judges 2, 1-3. We find the same type of admonition there. And the angel of Jehovah came up from Gilgal to Bochim, and said, I made you to go up out of Egypt, and have brought you unto the land which I swear unto your fathers. And I said, I will never break my covenant with you. And you shall make no league with the inhabitants of this land. Ye shall throw down their altars, but ye have not obeyed my voice. Why have ye done this? Wherefore I also said, I will not drive them out from before you, but they shall be as thorns in your sides, and their God shall be a snare unto you. All right, let's see. Unfortunately, we know that in spite of all these warnings, they did not obey. Again, this is parallel to what we read about the churches and denominations, where they allowed the high places, certain doctrines that were unfaithful, to remain in the churches and denominations, and they continually disobeyed until God ended his use of the New Testament churches and denominations on May 21, 1988, and that era of the church age, 1955 years, came to a very abrupt end. We read in Psalm 106, 34-40, again about their disobedience. Psalm 106, 34-40. They did not destroy the nations concerning whom Jehovah commanded them, but were mingled among the heathen and learned their works. And they served their idols, which were a snare unto them. Yea, they sacrificed their sons and their daughters unto devils, and shed innocent blood, even the blood of their sons and of their daughters, whom they sacrificed unto the idols of Canaan, and the land was polluted with blood. Thus were they defiled with their own works, and went a-whoring with their own inventions. Therefore was the wrath of the Lord of Jehovah kindled against his people, insomuch that he abhorred his own inheritance. And this idea of sacrificing their sons, which they did literally, is very, the spiritual dimension of that has to do with the fact that during, from May 21, 1988, those families that stayed in the churches with their children were in essence doing the same. They were bringing them into a place of judgment, not realizing that the blessing of God was no longer there. There was no more the light of the gospel. There was no more spiritual life, because the Holy Spirit had departed. He was not saving anymore at that time. All right, that brings us to Judges 1:21, and we'll just talk about this a little bit in the time that we have remaining today. Judges 1:21. We read, "And the children of Benjamin did not drive out the Jebusites that inhabited Jerusalem, but the Jebusites dwell with the children of Benjamin in Jerusalem unto this day." And so here again, we immediately see the failure on the part of the Benjaminites to drive out the Jebusites out of Jerusalem. And Jerusalem is a picture of the churches and the denominations. Again, it's a further reminder of the situation that took place in the New Testament churches, where you had wheat and tares growing together. And we read about that in Matthew 13, 24 to 30. Matthew 13, 24 to 30. Another parable put he forth unto them, saying, The kingdom of heaven is likened unto a man which sowed good seed in his field. But while men slept, his enemy came and sowed tares among them, among the wheat, and went his way. And when the blade was sprung up and brought forth fruit, there appeared the tares also. So the servants of the householder came and said unto him, Sir, didst not thou sow good seed in thy field? From whence then hath it tares? He said unto them, An enemy hath done this. The servants said unto him, Wilt thou then that we go and gather them up? But he said, Nay, lest while ye gather up the tares, ye root up also the wheat with them. Let both grow together until the harvest. And in the time of harvest I will say to the reapers, Gather ye together first the tares, and bind them in bundles to burn them, but gather the wheat into my barn. And so, here we see the situation where you had the wheat and the tares growing together until the time of harvest. And we know from elsewhere in this passage that the harvest is the end of the world. And that's when, on May 21, 1988, when the Great Tribulation began, this separation began. The true believers were either driven out or they left the churches and denominations, and the tares remained. And this is a similar situation to what we find here in the book of Judges. It's a little different because of the fact that God had commanded them to drive out the inhabitants, and it's more parallel along the lines that they didn't fully obey. So it's like allowing the high places, these doctrinal high places, to come in and to remain. But the ones that were fostering these doctrinal high places would have been those that were tares within the churches. Okay, I think we'll have to stop here today, and Lord willing, we'll continue with verse 22 in our next study.
Thank you for joining us today for Searching the Scriptures. Until next time, to God be the glory.